Hi, welcome to the Enhancing Clinical Practice and Outcomes stream at SNOMED Expo. Thank you to FAST for sponsoring this stream. My name is Ian Spires. I'm a terminology education specialist at SNOMED International. There's too much chocolate on my teeth, I think. I'll be your moderator for today's session. We'll address all questions at the end of the presentation. For our online audience, please use the Q&A button to submit your questions to the presenter. For those attending in person, feel free to use the microphone provided in the middle of the room when the time comes at the end of the presentation. It's now my pleasure to introduce Janice Spence and Tarek Kadoura from Canada Health Infoway, who will be presenting implementation of a FHIR terminology server, advancing semantic interoperability. So Janice and Tarek.
Great, thanks everyone. Again, Tarek Kadoura, and with me today is my colleague Janice Spence, and we're really happy to be here today to share a little bit about Canada's journeys in implementing a FHIR national terminology server. Take a look at some of the items we have today. So look at the Connected Care in Canada, some of the project journey steps, and look at the server in action and what's next. All right, so I think before we just start, a quick look at the Canadian health system to maybe level set. So in Canada, the Canadian health system is universal, meaning it does provide universal coverage. So it's publicly funded, meaning the service is free at the point of care. And each province and territory, they have their own health system, and they manage that within the Canadian federal guideline. In 2024, our healthcare spending reached about $257 billion, which is roughly about 12.5% of our GDP. That is a lot of money. It's probably like more than $9,000 per Canadian for that year. So clearly, that's why using consistent and clear terminology across the different system is very important, so we can turn this spending into better care for everyone. Another thing I want to just maybe highlight before we dive in, Canada Health Infoway, who we are and the role that we play. So Canada Health Infoway, we are an independent organization. We're funded by the federal government of Canada. Our vision is very simple, honestly. It's healthier Canadians through innovative digital health solution. And our mission is essentially to bring all the Canadian stakeholders in the healthcare to create more connected system, and obviously with our patient at its heart. The Canadian Standard Release Center does play a big role when it comes to supporting our vision and mission. We maintain and publish Canadian and international releases across Canada, and we roughly update and release these standards around 18 times per year. All right, so let's take a look at the Connected Care in Canada. I should actually say some of the challenges in Connected Care in Canada. So Canada, like so many other countries, we have our own challenges when it comes to healthcare and connected care. We often see the different provinces and jurisdictions recording the same information, but in a different way. So that's itself, it's a barrier, and it can cause some fragmentation when it comes to the data. So not only that this fragmentation and this barriers is inconvenient, it actually costs the system more than $2 billion a year. So truly to try to fix and to have a solution that can help us fix some of these problems, we need a system that can do that can actually enable the different systems to speak the same language. So when you look at the Connected Care in Canada and you look at some of the things that the providers and the clinician they do, they spend millions of hours each year and every year just dealing with duplicate data, silent system, and a lot of multiple logins and so much of the administrative task. This is the time that could actually be spent providing care for patients. Same thing when it comes to the patient, they do feel the impact too. A lot of them, they don't have actually access to their own health system. And most of the time when they are the clinician, they have to repeat the same clinical history several times. So this disconnected system and the manual workflows, it does definitely impact our healthcare system. So from a clinician or from a decision maker perspective, it's harder for them to see the full picture. So these challenges obviously affect us Canadian every day, and that's why Canada urgently actually needed a FHIR terminology server that can connect the dots and make sure this solution is improving the outcome for everybody. All right, so that brings us to why Canada truly needs a FHIR national terminology solution. So as I said earlier, all these diverse terminologies and all the fragmented data does create barriers when it comes to seamless care. And this inconsistency when it comes to decisions makes it really hard for the clinician. So that's why we needed a system that can be a national system and does a couple of things. One, use the data consistently in a way that everybody understands. Two, enable the different systems to truly speak the same language. In other words, we need a solution that can enable semantic interoperability across the country, which actually turns this fragmented data into a meaningful information. So the foundation to achieve this, or one of the foundations to achieve this, was to implement a national solution, which is the National FHIR Terminology Server. And that's actually has been playing like a key building block in making sure our health data consistently and it's understandable across the different system. All right, so now let's just take a look at the project journey. And I know I'm going a little bit fast, but I only have, a few minutes, so my apologies. All right, so let's take a look. Get the signal from Janice. So let's take a look at the journey in the health and implementing the solution. So very quickly, before we started doing anything, we reach out to the different healthcare providers, the vendors in Canada and outside of Canada, just to better understand what are the solutions that's already available out there and see if the solution actually is a good fit for the Canadian standards and requirement that we have in Canada, which are a little bit different than other countries, obviously. So through this process, we were able to identify some gaps and also opportunities of what are the proper tools that we can leverage and does check the boxes for most of what we're looking for. All right, so defining the path forward, once we had a good understanding of the market and what's available out there, we went back, refined our requirements, we made sure that we have a proper, clear use cases for what we're looking for, and just put the whole thing into a proper framework. We also had to make sure that we're aligning with our internal stakeholders, I should say, so there are no surprises at the end. All right, finding the right healthcare solution. So one thing I want to mention here is we weren't looking necessarily for an IT vendor. We're looking for a healthcare healthcare vendor, I would say, that understands healthcare and obviously comes with good technical expertise. So we work very closely with our national procurement team to make sure we have a clear RFP that articulates exactly what Info is looking for. And we were able to select Daedalus, and big shout out for the Daedalus team for all their help. Definitely one of the pillars for our success is having the right partner. And in this case, Daedalus did a phenomenal job. Another non-negotiable foundation that emerged from our market scan that we wanted a solution that can actually include onto server. We were already said that onto server is a solution that we want to implement. Now with onto server and with Daedalus in the picture, we're definitely ready to kick this project into full gears. All right, project in action. So once the vendor has been selected, Daedalus in this case, we work closely with our terminology team. We loaded SNOMED, the Canadian edition of SNOMED, as our first use case, and we built on other terminology. So basically, once SNOMED was loaded, we had other pan-Canadian LOINC and other content that's specifically to Canada. We set up the clear governance and operations. We also created resource plan, we assigned different roles, and just to make sure that we have the right leads leading the right conversations from an expertise and also from ownership perspective. All right, I'm just going to spend maybe just 1 minute here, if you don't mind, Janice. So one thing to call out here, the speed to market. I think what really stands out here is how quickly the team moved to take this project from a contract signing all the way to go live in only 4 months. So one thing I would call for anybody that's probably starting on a similar journey, if you are in doubt, unsure, just start, and I think the rest will come naturally. So in March 2024, we signed a contract with Daedalus. By April, we officially kicked off the project. By early May, our technical configuration was already completed, and we started to load the first content in there. That was our Canadian SNOMED CT. Once we did that, we start to look at actually what else can we expand on. So we loaded different terminologies, different standards, and throughout the process, basically, we just make sure that we test, we go back and reiterate, and if we need to improve, we do the same thing. So it was almost a cycle of initiate, configure, validate, go live, and then support. Lesson learned from the journey. I mean, if anything in this slide I would mention is the collaboration across the different teams. So we have terminologies, business folks, technical folks, but I think the fact that everybody played a key role in this and different people wore a different hat, that was a big thing. And the fact that Daedalus was very adaptive, very responsive, it did help us. One thing to call, and I do not work for Daedalus, by the way, but Daedalus actually, were able to challenge us in a good way. Just think about this scenario, think about this, so just from their own experience. So that's a great thing, and we really definitely appreciate that. So on the flip side, we were very ambitious when it comes to the timeline and the resources. So we could have used a lot more resources to finish the project, but I think we did great despite everything. So. All right, the terminology solution. So now we are thrilled to introduce Canada's new FHIR terminology server. It's a modern cloud-based solution. It's FHIR compliant. It provides clear access and secure access to our technology, to our reliable clinical terminologies. One thing to call out here that this system is a true meaningful way to enable semantic interoperability, and it connects nicely with our jurisdictions and different systems. So it put everything under one kind of like terminology framework. Okay, time up. So right, that's it for me, I guess. I'll pass it over to Janice, and she'll take you through more of the features and everything SNOMED related, and I'll see you now maybe 3 minutes.
Thank you, Tarek. And hi, everyone. I'm Janice Spence. I'm a senior standards specialist with the Canadian NRC with specific responsibility for content management and release management. So Tarek has taken you through the why and the how, and I'll go a little bit into the what of our NTS. So just looking a little bit at the server and the services we provide, as well as reviewing the technology platform, a few of the components, as well as some highlights of how the service is being utilized. So the platform, as you're well aware of already, is onto server. So we won't belabor why we chose onto server because, sorry, I'll go back. We won't belabor why we chose onto server, but one of the prime reasons for that is it's FHIR approved, as well as quite scalable. And right now it's used to distribute all of our national terminologies to our clients. And we also provide syndication services. It comes with multiple products and services, but for this session, I will focus on the Shrimp browser and the Onto Command next as part of the offerings for our clients. So what do we have in the server right now? So as Tarek mentioned, sorry, I'm just needed to get to my notes. So it's our repository, our source of truth, and the mechanism for dissemination of terminologies for our Canadian clients. We have the Canadian edition as well as the Pan-Canadian LOINC. So that's both native LOINC as well as the Pan-Canadian extension for LOINC. And it also offers all the translations that we have for our edition. I think we're at about 160,000 plus translations and 24,000 plus Canadian concepts. And in addition to the Canadian version of SNOMED CT, we have our national drug terminology called the Canadian Clinical Drug Data Set. I mentioned Pan-Canadian LOINC, as well as a vast offering of value sets. Currently, I think we have about 270, and of those, it's about 66 SNOMED CT ref sets. And we also have code system supplements to support our French translations for like HL7 value sets. For those of you who are thinking about going down this path and whether it supports SNOMED CT, it does a fantastic job. It's full support, robust support from the get-go, supporting both from the RF2 release perspective as well as a FHIR code system. So that's a key strength of it, and it provides FHIR resources such as code systems, value set ref sets for SNOMED CT, as well as all the accompanying terminology operations such as lookup and validate code, subsume, etc. So let's take a little peek at the browsing interface. So this is Shrimp. So this is where most of our content managers would come in and do their browsing and searching. And by the way, all of our, we've provided a plethora of guides and demos, and that's all part of the deck. So you can go in and take a look because we can't obviously show it today. So this is the component that they use for browsing. And one of the key benefits of this browser that our users have reported to us is the ability, sort of a differentiator from other browsers, is the ability to look at the membership of value sets in context of the hierarchy. So you can see supertypes, subtypes, and you also have visual cues as to what members of that subtype or supertype is actually part of the value set. So that they've reported that that was a key feature that was helpful, as well as the ECL functionality. So you're able to sort of have your library of ECLs that you can go back to and reference, and you can export that content out based on the ECL queries. And they've reported that that's been very helpful for them. Next is the onto command dashboard. So this is sort of our control center that we use to manage our FHIR resources. So this is you go and you browse metadata for code systems, value sets, concept maps, etc. I'd just like to call out, on top of the standard offering, we were able to work with our fantastic partners, Dallas, chocolate plug right there. They helped us to get some additional functionality based on customer feedback for this. And one of the key functionalities was to actually be able to offer additional things like downloads and comparisons for value sets for the pan-Canadian value sets that we have there. And it also, as part of the downloads, you can also get Delta files. And I'd just like to say, although we recognize the value of the FHIR servers and being able to access terminology artifacts programmatically, so using your FHIR APIs, using your syndication APIs, we got feedback and learned very quickly that we had to meet our users in the middle. Not everybody was at that level of readiness. So, while you might be wondering why static downloads, we really had to sort of compromise. So we still are promoting that path, that graceful evolution, but we also wanted to keep that functionality that they were used to with our legacy server. And I'll just touch briefly on the deployment model. It's fairly standard. So we do an approval pathway. So everything goes to the staging server first for validation and confirmation before we push it to production. And we go through that iteration process until everything is good to go. Quality assured release processes. I just like to call out here that for the post-packaging validation process, we were really able to automate a lot of the stuff that we did manually before. So this is like putting in predefined scripts to check for value set memberships, to check for do sanity checks on the RF2 files. So on the left-hand side, you just see a snapshot of the airflow. So that gives us a status of how things are looking as the RF2 goes in to staging. On the right-hand side is the Newman report. And this is really a handy-dandy report that spits out the outcome of our ref set validation very quickly, has saved us a lot of time, that validation that we had to do manually in our legacy server. So that's a really great plus for us. Very quickly, you've heard about syndication services. The same for us. We've fully utilized the services, and we're depending on this for consumers to use this as a source of truth, to pick up terminologies and keep up to date at the local level without having to worry about the maintenance burden. So who are our users and what are they using it for as we look at the digital health landscape? So I'll just give some highlights from the data in and out perspective. Of course, there are content managers, which would include members of my team, our jurisdictional partners who also have standard SMEs, the product development teams, government partners like Health Canada, they manage the national drug terminology, as well as our federal partners like the Canadian Institute for Health Information, who are responsible for developing information models and common data standards. Specification writers and information modelers, of course, key for them because the authors of the specs like the Canadian Patient Summary, the CA Core Plus, they all utilize the server as part of their the conformance validation program. And for smart data entry and analytics, we're hoping that, we grow more in this arena where consumers would be able to advance uses of terminology as we talk about, implementation maturity levels to get to that enhanced and optimized level. So we're hoping that we'll be able to help support that as well. And finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about the applications across Canada. So some examples of, who's who, what solutions, initiatives are utilizing the service across Canada. We have the Pan-Canadian Health Data Content Framework, which defines and standardizes health information by way of both a data content standard and a common data architecture. And as part of that, it's subsetted into the RCA CDI, which is, you've heard about the Career CDI and the AU CDI. So this is our version. So this provides the foundation for the interoperability health information exchange across Canada. And they have defined a minimum set of data that's drawn from that framework, and they leverage this terminology service to define coded elements using SNOMED, CT, and other core terminologies. Our clinical drug data set, this is our national drug terminology that's used mostly for interchange, and they also utilize the TS as a source of truth, both to disseminate CCDD as a code system as well as value sets as well. And lastly, the National Vaccine Catalog, again, another key tool for us in Canada as it seeks to facilitate standardized documentation of immunizations. And they also leverage our service to distribute their value sets as well. And lastly, I'll mention the interoperability spec space. It's our server is key here because we've now integrated as well with the HL7 ecosystem. And so that means your HL7 IG publisher, as well as being registered as part of the TX server. So it facilitates full conformance validation, as well as all the terminology bindings that are part of our value sets, that are part of our service, sorry. So for there to be a success in connected care with standardized data exchange, we are positioning this server and service for this purpose to advance interoperability. And I'd like to hand it over to Tarek for him to just give us a quick walk on the look forward.
So I think as we look ahead, really, it's really hard to summarize 2 years worth of work in 20 minutes. So that's a lot of work has been done under the hood to get this server out. This has been a very, very challenging project for us, but I would say it's also very, very rewarding. Today, actually, fast forward 2 years ago, this started just as a simple idea. Now this has evolved in a full-blown server that's actually very stable, very robust. Today, we have more than 450 users using the server, connected to the server every day, and nearly 90 systems that's connected system to system, syndicating and taking whatever they need from the terminology server. And we think actually that terminology server truly helps to enable this semantic interoperability in Canada. And that's why we're going to continue to expand, add more use cases, and we keep encouraging users to come bring your problems, tell us, how we can help you, how the server can help you solve your terminology problem. So we'll continue to modernize our system and make sure it's connected using terminology standards data. And sorry, I should have clicked looking forward. Yes. And just make sure that we have a better outcome for everybody. But we're available for any questions. If anybody has any question, even after the session, if you guys want to hear more. As I said, 2 years worth of work in 20 minutes, it's a little bit hard. So.
So thank you, Tarek and Janice. We'll start beginning the question sections. As a reminder, those in the room, please use the microphone so that people online can hear. Does anybody have any questions? I do believe that's a lot of work to try and get in 20 minutes, but it's impressive how much you've done. Anybody have any questions at all? Okay, so I'm going to ask some questions. How many systems are currently syndicated to your server?
As of last week, we have 90 systems connected directly to our solution, and those systems from different areas, different places of the country as well. So,
And what's the feedback looking like? People
we haven't heard any complaints so far, but
okay, that's good.
And when we do hear the feedback or any complaints, it's almost in the realm that people not truly maybe fully understanding, or maybe just missing some documentation, or it could be just something that we just need to further explain. But no real kind of like complaints so far. As a matter of fact, we're hearing a lot of positive feedback, and yeah.
That sounds brilliant. So thank you very much. That concludes this session. To our online delegates, you're welcome to maintain here for the next presentation in this stream, or you can navigate to another session via the event lobby. So thank you, Janice and Tarek.